Alright guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the big video. We do it once a year. It's the squad update video with the one and only Pedro, who's here to talk us through the changes. And there's always changes in a non-league or any league squad in the off-season. Most of these, by the way, I think all of them have been announced already on our social media, whether that's departures or incoming. So if you're not following us, this is your annual reminder to make sure you are, whether that's Instagram, whether that's X, wherever you can find us, TikTok, why not? Go crazy with it. Follow us on all of them. Get involved because you probably get the news first there. But I know a lot of you have been waiting for this video. I'm wearing the new home kit. If you haven't seen it yet, you're missing out. This is an absolute feat of engineering. VX3 have smashed it. Home, away. Maybe another kit to come soon. Who knows? Maybe another announcement to come regarding that kit soon. Who knows? Just a rumour. That's what the streets are saying. Anyway, Mr. Pedro, how are you?
I'm very good. Yourself?
I'm excited. It's almost the eve. As people are watching this, it's match day. You're going to watch this on the day of our first game of the season, which is Lewis away down on the south coast. The Dripping Pan, one of non-league's most famous arenas. We actually played Lewis quite early on in last season as well, didn't we? I think it was second or third game.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting comparison. How are you feeling going into the season, Devs? You know, we'll get into the departures and the incomings in the squad, but you've had TST for a third time this summer. We've had Singapore, which was a new treat, in the first time playing in Asia. How's that been?
I mean, obviously the experience has been fantastic, and yeah, kind of pinch yourself moments, aren't they? I think at our level, especially for, you know, the calibre of clubs that we were coming up against, the calibre of player and the experience. So that was all brilliant. But it is quite disruptive. It does make things quite difficult, quite tough. So it's been busy, very busy. Yeah,
and obviously with Singapore, it was a small-sided tournament, much like TST, which meant we couldn't take the whole squad. So you had some people left behind, some people playing out there, various, injuries and things picked up alongside the way. So we're not complaining. We get to do some amazing things at Hashtag and we love it. But it isn't your classic off-season. It never is. We don't even get really downtime, do we? It just never ends. TST training starts straight away. You get out to North Carolina. Then you kind of have to start pre-season pretty soon after that to have any chance of hitting the ground running. So it's non-stop. But we've also had all the other stuff going on at the club as well, like the raise. So many of you bought shares in the club, which is fantastic. We'll have more information on the sort of future plans and that stuff soon as well. But we are now back to the basics of non-league football. We announced some of our departures, and we're going to start with talking about the departures today. At the back end of last season. I think all but one of these were done quite early. That we either knew the player was leaving, or we sort of, had let them know there wasn't going to be a position for them next season. Probably the most high-profile one. We talked about this in the TST update video. We did it before we went out there, was Hassan, obviously, who signed for Wealdstone National League team. Interesting fact, 5 players have gone pro, i.e. full-time football, from Hashtag since January of this year. That is a great stat. I mean, that is prolific in those, 7-8 months that have passed. There's 3 women players there, Holly Turner, Malika Pindia, Sophie Bajan, and obviously Josh Asude and Hassan have all done that. So we're really, really happy for them and hope they kick on. Sak will be missed in many ways, quite prolific when it came to goals and assists last few years, and we'll talk about who we've brought in to hopefully replace those. But a word on Sak?
Yeah, we wish him all the very best. I think it was quite clear before the season ended that he'd been moving on. That had been made quite clear, not directly by the player, but it was quite apparent. And I would like for it to have gone slightly differently. I think. Not in terms of the outcome, but more in terms of the approach to the outcome, the way we came to the outcome. But again, Sak joins, the National League that with Josh, Ben Brooks,
Scott Pollock,
Jermaine Francis,
half the leagues play for Hashtag.
Funny enough, I saw Josh last night a game, and one of the things he was quite excited about and looking forward to was these kind of little mini reunions with the other boys. So
I think there's quite a few in the opening weeks. Actually, they're playing a couple of them.
I think they do.
So we're really proud of that.
Nice to see.
We talk about it a lot, don't we? Every time a Sak or an Asude or any of the ladies that have moved on happens, it just further proves what we believe is one of our strongest points at Hashtag, which is a really good platform for young players. Loads of attention on you. If you come in and you've got the goods, we're going to give you the opportunity to showcase that. And I think the proof's been in the pudding now, isn't it? So, yeah, interesting to see how SAC gets on in the National League. 2 levels above us, if you didn't know. 3 we announced quite close together. Mert Apat, Alex Bolivan, Alfie Q. So you've got a centre-half, centre-mid and a striker there. All moved on. Can you give us a bit of light on that?
Yeah, just you have to kind of make decisions really to grow the squad, if you like. And I think with Alfie, it was a case of he'd come off of a pretty significant injury.
Didn't actually play last season.
Didn't play. Still recovering from that injury, and to be fair to him, he probably needs to go and play somewhere where he can play week in, week out. And I just didn't see where he'd get that opportunity with us without getting a significant amount of game time under his belt. It's tough and it's unfortunate, but that's just the kind of discussion I had with him, to maybe just go somewhere where he can have a bit of a clean slate, if you like, and just play. Yeah,
and then with Mert and Alex, obviously, Alfie's not old by any means, but no. That younger players. Mert played a fair bit towards the back end of the season. Yeah. Alex was involved a lot. Had a spell on dual reg in the middle. A lot of substitute appearances. What was the thinking there?
Just a similar kind of thing for both boys. I couldn't guarantee how much they would play. And felt it'd probably be in their best interest to find somewhere where they've got a chance of playing more regularly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure quite where Mert's ended up yet. My understanding he's been on trial somewhere. And I think Alex has recently signed for Stanway Rovers.
Okay.
Who obviously we encountered pre-season.
Yeah.
But he hadn't signed for them at that point.
No.
But he's there, so hopefully, we wish them, all 3 of the boys.
Yeah.
The very best, and
as we always
we'll come
do.
across them again in the future.
Once a tag, always a tag. Another player that played a fair bit last year, Iola Koga, had a really nice spell. I think got back-to-back man of the match appearances in the sort of November period last year, including a really good performance against Brackley Town when we upset them in the FA Trophy. Obviously, centre midfielder. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Brilliant lad. Fantastic kind of squad member and someone to have around. But again, Ao found himself not playing as much as he would have liked towards the end of the season. I think with the emergence of Matty as a centre midfielder as well, made that more difficult for him. And with PK coming back and being more likely to feature, more prominently this year, we hope, then it just made that a really congested area of the pitch. So similar conversation was with AO, was, I kind of said, look, I'd like you to stay, but I can't promise you things will change. And it was something where he was thinking about and took a long time to kind of decide on. And in the end, I just had another conversation with him and said, I think it's probably best that, if it's not something you're comfortable with, then it's probably best that we just kind of, shake hands and wish him all the best.
Yeah, fair enough. And that was obviously quite early on in the summer. One that was much more recent. We just announced his departure, and potentially the biggest departure in terms of games for the club of these departures. Yeah, he'd played the most, and he'd been part of obviously a promotion and title winning campaign back in the Isthmian North. Pedro Carvalho.
Yeah, toughest one for me, I think. Because he's been with us such a long time, had some really special memories with him as a part of our squad, and one I feel guilty about, if I'm honest. But that's the worst part of my job.
Yeah,
I have to make horrible decisions, and as I explained to Pedro, it's never personal. It's never a personal thing. It's just sometimes you have to make decisions that I think. And whilst it's me in this chair, I'm ultimately the one that has to make the call that I think will be best for, the team and the club moving forward. And I just felt that with some of the boys that we'll talk about in a minute that have come in, that competition would be quite significant in those areas. And I didn't see Pedro at the front of that list.
Yeah.
And the timing wasn't great from me, and that's something that I had to wrestle with, because I kind of made the decision maybe in my mind a little earlier than I told him, but equally I wanted him to enjoy the Singapore experience. I felt he deserved that as a send off.
Did well out there. I mean, different format. He scored a great goal, didn't he?
Yeah, and somebody's going to get a brilliant squad member and player.
Yeah,
a really popular lad with players and staff, everyone around the club. And yeah, I kind of he was upset, understandably so, and I think his argument was, you could have told me a bit sooner. But when I explained to him that I didn't want to tarnish the experience of Singapore for him, he kind of understood that and said it would have ruined it for him had he been told beforehand.
Difficult job, mate. I think, it's easy for people not in your shoes to criticise when they don't like a decision or whatever. Fundamentally as well, you probably don't get the plaudits you deserve when you make the tough decisions and they end up being right, whether that's a new person coming in or a departure. But listen, Pedro,
But I think it's important as fans, right? You don't like to see players leave.
No.
But equally...
We'd have 100 players, wouldn't we?
But equally, you demand new signings.
Yeah.
So if we're going to get new players in, then that means other players have to make way for them. It's just the way, teams and squads, move and evolve. And there will be people that disagree with my decisions, absolutely.
Of course.
I fully understand that. And but as you say, you have to make these tough calls because otherwise we would just stay the same. And the criticism would be that you never bring anyone new in.
Exactly. And the game's the game ultimately. It is, Pedro's been with us a long period of time, and he would have had more games under his belt if it wasn't for, obviously, he had the spell when he went to Luxembourg, and then he obviously had the big injury last year. And
funnily enough, somebody pointed that out to me. You have to do what's right. Players do what's right for them.
Yep.
At that time, Pedro chose it was right for him to leave, and and there were no hard feelings around that. And he came back. Unfortunately, this time it's my decision to for him to move on. But that's not to say that there's not a time in the future where...
No, of course, we've got plenty of previous with that, haven't we? Players coming back for 3 spells. So, Pedro, thank you. Legend. Yeah. All the guys departing the club, thank you very much. We do appreciate your service. Let's now move on into the staying players, the retained players, if you like, and the new additions. So we'll go through in positional order. Starting off with the goalkeeper, Gids stays. Interesting arc last year for Gids. He kind of referenced it in the awards at the end of the year because among many players, and when we started slow last year, it did feel like a lot of the criticism was aimed at the newer players, perhaps unfairly at times as well. And as a goalkeeper or some of the defenders that were involved in those games, they felt like they got targeted. What an amazing journey that Gids ends up getting Fans Player of the Year last year. And he referenced that in his thank you speech at the awards. When we were good, he was a massive reason we were good last year. And when we had that raise and we got up to the playoff conversation, he was integral, and we've got him again for next year.
Yeah, and Gids had been a long time at his previous club. You've got to remember that. And so there was a significant change for him. And, when you're looking from the outside at something, you don't think about the things around changes in, routine and in the environment and, management style and playing style. It doesn't just, people don't just step onto the pitch. It happens at all levels, and you'll see new players get criticised equally when new players can come in and get off to an absolute flyer and have a bit of a honeymoon period, and then it tails off a little bit. So I think you've got to give new players a little bit more of a chance to settle and not be so snappy in judgment.
We have to get better at that. I know we addressed it last year, and I know that when people do it, they do it from a place of care because they care about the club. But it's sometimes just not the most optimal way of being a fan of this football team, because I think maybe this hasn't happened too many times, but we definitely run the risk of turning players away that could come very good for us because of that early experience is ruined. And it's very hard for us to put it into words for you guys to understand, particularly those of you that aren't local or understand English non-league system, of how different an experience it is playing for our team versus playing for some of the other teams in the same league. You could have a really bad first few months in some of the other teams. No one would know. No one would know. And you get the time to grow. At this club, you'll have a serious level of criticism coming at you, scrutiny coming at your performances, and they're not really being fairly enough remunerated for all that scrutiny. Plus what higher level professionals are having to deal with. sometimes even like League One or Championship players probably aren't getting the same level of scrutiny, quite frankly.
And I think sometimes the boys don't really understand it until they're within it as well. You look and you see the good side of it, and there are loads. The positives certainly outweigh the negatives. But
it would be interesting to know if there's any, and maybe you could tell us in the comments. Are any of the people that voted for Gids as Fans Player of the Year the same people that were actually criticising him? And it's fine to admit you are. We're all on a growth journey together. I'm learning new things as an owner all the time. I learned a lot last year. And I think it would be really interesting to know if people went on that journey. Because if you are, I think that's a really good time to take stock and think, right, let's hope that we start better this season. Obviously, that's what we're all aiming to do. But if it does not go to plan at the start, let's not be so quick to judge, particularly the new faces, because we know things can change.
But equally, that's part of my job as well, isn't it? To make sure that I'm not reacting to the noise.
Yeah.
And that actually, and I think I'd like to think, and it's been mentioned about do give players a fair chance.
I think we're really good for that. I think some clubs definitely operate a much more ruthless policy than us, I would say. And we could probably, in some ways, be almost justified in doing that more because of the platform we have. But that's not the way we like to do things. And we're really happy and proud of the environment we create, which is why so many players like to come back generally. Speaking of players who've been with us for a while, actually, Nathan Smith, he's still going.
He is. He's suffered injury, I think, towards the end of the season, which was a huge blow to him, but us as well.
He was doing so well last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Obviously, he was playing in centre of defence as well, and and playing really well there, and then suffered that injury, which I think affected him quite a lot because I think when you get to Nathan's age, and we know he's how much he looks after himself, but having experienced it myself as a player, doubt starts creeping about, are you being told, by your body that you're coming towards the end. And I think he had a little bit of a tough time probably, mentally and emotionally around, recovering from his injury, even to the extent where at the beginning of pre-season, he was, still finding his way, struggling mobility-wise, I'd say. And then he just seems to be just getting back to his old self. I think the Singapore trip definitely helped him, in terms of the intensity of the games and the frequency of them and just being there constant and being put under that test and pressure, his body, and he's starting to look like his old self. So that's great that he's staying.
Yeah, he's an absolute freak of nature, that man. We'll rattle through some of these with no disrespect to the players, but we've got a lot to get through today. So let's talk about these two together. Same surname, the Andersons, Jermaine and Tomo, both staying.
Yeah, really straightforward one for once with Tomo.
Yeah.
We haven't had to go through the usual.
Today
we've still got a day between now and starting the season. He might throw me a curveball, but I'm hoping he's kind of finally realised that this is the place that suits him best.
He's a funny guy, Tomo. He's messaging me watching, because unfortunately I couldn't go to Singapore either for personal reasons, and he couldn't go because of work commitments. And obviously we're watching like you guys were, and it looked so amazing. And Tomo messaged me, I'm gutted I couldn't be in Singapore. It looks so good. God, where are we going next year? And I'm like, hang on, they haven't even done Singapore yet, mate.
What'd you say? You haven't left yet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you better stick around.
No, so that was one of probably my easiest conversation.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of difficult conversation. What people don't realise as well is, and I'm going off subject slightly, but retaining players this year has probably been more difficult than actually bringing new players in.
Right.
It's been quite tough, quite a challenge. One, because of the interest that some of them have got from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then for some of the others, I think, and this is the downside of my job in terms of the club, is the noise and the external noise that kind of blows a bit of smoke their way, that gets them a little bit carried away. And
yes, we like to put our players on a pedestal and celebrate them because we love them. We love what they do for us, but equally, there's a lot of people listening.
A false sense of where you're at.
And that's why it's great that we do have so many players. And I really can't stress this enough, how lucky we are, right? Because of the youth of our club. We're in our 10th year now. It's our 10th anniversary kit I'm wearing right now. To have so many, like we're never going to have another time in our history like this, where we have so many fundamentally club legends, and we actually have an all-time 11, don't we? And so many of them are playing in the team now. And we've really got to enjoy it because it's only going to get harder every year. I mean, the likes of Matty, Tomo, Harry, Toby, all of these guys, there's loads I haven't said there. They literally will probably be in that all-time 11 for a long time, I imagine, for like 5-10 years from now, maybe. And they're playing right now. So we've got to really enjoy them. And every year we get to keep these boys. And there's so many, like Dev says, keeping a player, it's not just about whether we want them. It's not even just simple as whether they want to stay. It's non-league, there's so many different factors. Their job could be a huge issue, personal life, having children. So many things can affect their ability to play for your club. So getting players to stay and buy into the project for a long period of time is massive. And they're the ones personally that I put on the pedestal. It's not necessarily about how many goals you scored, or are you the one that everyone loves, or are you the fastest or the best kicker of the ball, whatever. For me, it's like the people that have bought into the project for the longest period of time. They're the ones. And that's why I love seeing things like in Singapore, having people like Andy Cade Watts help out with the women's team, who is our goalkeeping coach for the women's team. But obviously he was one of our original goalkeepers and he's still with the club. And that means a lot to me because it's like you guys have stuck with us so long watching. There's people in real life doing that as well. So I love it. So Tomo's still here. Jermaine as well, the other Anderson.
Yeah, had a procedure over the course of the summer.
Yeah.
Struggled last year. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, the signs are that he's going to make a full recovery from that. And
excellent.
Yeah,
we know how good Jermaine can be. He had some really strong performances, and even while he was struggling with that groin issue last year. So the Andersons stay, which is great. Harry Haysom as well, another big one, another fan favourite.
Yeah, I think, and this conversation I had with Harry, I think by his standards, he had a disappointing year last year. But and it's easy when people are kind of inside to look. You start to look at what players don't do as opposed to what they do. If you scrutinise too much, and I think really it's our job to get him back to what we know he is, because I think on his day he's as good as anyone. But I think he had a disappointing year. That's okay. Do we be snappy about that and let somebody else come and benefit from him? Having getting back to his best. And I think he deserved. I think we probably deserved each other's loyalty.
Yeah.
In that sense, and that's one I've said to him. I think we've got to raise the bar with you because you're not a baby anymore. You need to step up and show how important a fixture you are for us.
Yeah, and he finished the season with Player of the Month, which was interesting when I looked into it because it was actually his first Player of the Month since that breakout season, which surprised me because the only thing about Harry is almost every season he's had at least one injury where he's missed a little bit of football, which I think maybe has slowed him down sometimes in that regard. But it would be. You forget with Harry like how long he's been with us already at his age, and he's like played so many games. But yeah, if he can continue where he left off at the back end of last season into next year, then we know we've got a very good centre half there. Speaking of good defenders, Josh Rosoke had a breakout year last year. Kind of came out of nowhere. He was involved in pre-season, had to wait for his chance in the team. Certainly took it when he got it, and he stays with us.
Yeah, although he's struggling at the moment.
Yeah,
with an injury that we don't quite know what it is. It's kind of, I suspect there might be a little bit, and we've had this conversation, there might be a little bit of kind of an overuse about his injury,
right.
And whether that's brought on some kind of fatigue or, but it's a little bit of a concern at the moment. So we're having to look after him and see where, but it's one where Josh has probably got to have a look at the things he's doing, in his own personal life as well, and I've had the conversation. Rest is as important as exercise and playing at times. It's knowing when to get those rests in. But
we all know how good he can be on his day.
He had a fantastic season last year. Really good, brilliant footballer. Possibly our most naturally gifted footballer.
Yeah. So we shouldn't expect to see him at the start of the season then?
Certainly the weekend would be too today. I think it'd be too soon for him.
Okay.
It's just not, but and I suppose the concern is we don't quite know what it is.
Yeah. Okay, I'll keep an eye on that one. And then to round off the defence, well, I say we've got a couple of additions. One's not so much of an addition as it is a promotion, which is Nathan Wilson. He's obviously been part of the club for a long time. Played a decent amount of football in our reserve team. Spent last year with White Ensign, with your son.
Last 2 years.
Last 2 years, sorry, with your son, obviously Devro. Nathan was captain of that team, 19. It was a very young White Ensign team, did really well. And we've brought him into the first team this year.
Well, we kind of brought him back as a dual reg last year. And if I'm honest, there was a real strong temptation to bring him back more permanently. And you could argue I should have done that. However, White Ensign been brilliant for Nathan. He was their captain. He was playing regularly. And what I didn't want to do was bring him back to make him a bit part when deny him the regular football that he was playing. So that was the kind of call I made. But he was training with us, and he was, he featured in games when White Ensign didn't have a game, and things like that. So it just felt that there was a chance for him to come back. And the conversation with Nathan has been that I've been quite a lot of interest in Nathan from teams. I don't know, White Ensign were keen to keep him. Other teams in that league wanted him. The teams in the league above that and the one below us are very interested in him. And I've said to him, if he comes back and he doesn't make, and he's not playing, he doesn't make a squad, then obviously the obvious thing to do will be to put him back out. But if that happens, I'll be really disappointed, because I think he's got a real chance.
Yeah.
He's got a fantastic attitude. He's grown a lot, in terms of experience that he's had. He's had close to probably 100 games of senior football now.
Still in 19, is he? 20?
Still 20, 19. Yeah, it might just be 20.
Young for a centre-back.
Yeah. And, I'll be really disappointed if he doesn't, crack on with us this year.
Yeah. And I think you can see, watching him, even last year, I remember the Brighton Sea Regent game when he came on in a difficult game. I think we were potentially losing when he came on the pitch. Him and Ellis came on, and he put his hand up to take a penalty, which he scored.
Winning penalty.
Winning penalty. As a young lad who's not played a lot of football in that first team, to come in and do that, very impressed I was by that. He's had a lot of standout performances even when he's coming off the bench. I think in pre-season he's been good. So I'm super excited for that. And he feels like, again, as a young club, we haven't got many of these, but it feels like sort of one of our own that's come through the reserve side. So if we can see him play meaningful amount of football in the first team, I'll be very happy with that.
He was a perfect example of, we weren't in a position to put him straight into our first team. Didn't think he was quite ready, but just playing reserve team football wasn't going to aid his development. So get him out playing senior football, playing competitive men's football has really helped him. But I never ever felt like he wasn't our. It wasn't ever a case of he's not our player.
But it's a two-way street, that, isn't it? Because it's really important for us to create that pathway and help them find the team to play for, and track their progress and keep them in training. You've been really good at that. But it's also so important that the player just wants to play for us. And what I'll say about Nathan is, I've had the privilege of hanging out with him a couple of times. I gave him a lift home from a game once. We had a good chat and things like this. And I always got the impression he wants to play for Hashtag, which it means a lot, especially some of the things we started to experience last year and some of the stuff that went on with the women's team and some of the stuff that you get from players maybe that have had a few years at the club and they clearly have a different attitude. Obviously, they've got to be good enough, and obviously they've got to improve us. But when they are that and they really want to play for you, it's a really quick way to get in my good books. And I'd say Nathan has demonstrated that.
He was a 16-year-old in our reserves. He became captain of our reserves. I think he sees it as his club.
Yeah.
And I see him as our player. So.
Yeah, there you go. And then finally, an early addition in the off season. He's played a lot already. Went to Singapore with us. Jason Ring, aka Ringo. A bit of context on him. He was with Aveley for the last few years in the National League South. He's captain of that side in the National League South, which is obviously the league above us. And Aveley did particularly well in their first season in the National League South. But obviously he's got a whole history of clubs before. You've worked with him, I think, before.
I say very loosely. He was in the youth team.
Yeah. Okay.
when I was at East Thurrock. I'm not sure he actually played in the first team when I was still there. He did a similar thing to Nathan, went out on dual registrations, come back, played in the first team, moved to Averley, double promotion with Averley, League Cup, fantastic servant to them and club captain. He was surplus to requirements there, with their change of management, and knowing him as a person, a character, speaking, to his old manager as well. It was just, once he was available and knowing him as a person, it was really important when you talk, especially with the more senior new players we brought in. We lacked a bit of character last year within the group, and personality in terms of a team mentality. I think it was too much individualism crept into the squad, and to a large extent derailed what we were trying to achieve. So the personality and the character of people coming in was as important as to what they're going to contribute, on the pitch as well. So that's been that's why there weren't many, particularly early on, weren't many signings, but the signings are made very carefully kind of thought through.
Yeah, people that have been there, done that, and he's certainly one of them, and a good character. Yeah, right back by trade. And we've seen a fair bit of him already, so we look forward to seeing more. As we move into the sort of midfield section, again, we'll go through the retained players fairly quickly here, but Matty Waldridge, again, can play fullback, played centre mid a lot last year, kind of a evolution of his footballing capabilities at Hashtag was happening last year, and he's staying. Yeah,
still driving me mad. You say he plays fullback, he plays the full more than he plays fullback. He continues to be one of the problems that I have to deal with.
The all-time appearance maker of Hashtag, by the way. Should we mention that? No one's played more games for Hashtag than Matty Waldridge. Another great example of the Hashtag Academy series, by the way, which we haven't done in a while now, but he's a player that came through that and has played more games than anyone else. Another player that's came through that, Josh Asude, is now pro in the National League. Another player that's come through that, Scott Pollock, is now pro in the National League. What a series that is. Should bring it back, really, shouldn't we? But Matty Waldridge, this new player.
We've got time.
Yeah, no. That's the problem. Our summers, I don't know, we'd have to do it in Singapore. But Matty Waldridge, I'm obviously really happy with that. And I feel like he's still a young player, but I feel like in his own unique way, because you guys probably don't understand what his personality is actually like. And it is definitely
bonkers
individual, shall we say. But he's really kind of growing into it, I think, personally, anyway, from spending a bit of time with him on some of these trips as well. He kind of taken on this, not a leadership role. There's a word for it. I'm not sure what it is, but he certainly feels like one of the more senior members of the squad, carries himself in a certain way.
He gets the club. I think that's what he understands what the club is, and what's needed to play for the club, and he has this kind of no care approach to things that becomes his strength, because he does care.
He does care. You can't deny.
But he doesn't care to the extent where it can be. So caring too much can be as dangerous as not caring at all. And he manages to look like he doesn't care, but cares just the right amount.
I think once he gets on the pitch, he becomes a different animal.
He just wants to play football.
Yeah, and he's very, very good at it. Someone else who's very good is Max Cornhill. Much like Nathan Smith, seems to have no expiry date. And he's, obviously, we know what Max Cornhill brings on his day when he's on song. For me, particularly in those big away games in front of big crowds, he just comes alive. I can think of a number of them last year where he made the difference for us in that centre midfield, and he's still with us. Captain, of course, as well.
And with Max, it really it's that, I suppose, when I'm entering the discussion with him, it's more the fear of him saying, I think it's time.
Yeah, which he hasn't done yet.
And he hasn't, so that's, delighted with that. But I don't think you'll ever appreciate through the screen and just seeing games the value that he has within the squad and the esteem in which he's held by the players.
He plays player last year as well.
They look up to him like he's just he is their kind of the inspiration and the role model that they all look up to.
Yeah,
leads by example. Continues to defy age.
Yeah, biology,
and just delighted that he's staying.
We love him. Max Cornell in the centre midfield, along with Joe Christou, who joined us quite early on in last season, just before the FA Cup game, I think, against his old team, Hornchurch, wasn't it? Had a bit of injury issues last year. We didn't see loads of him.
No, we're really looking forward to seeing the best of Joe this year. Saw glimpses of it in Singapore. He came out to us. Funny enough, he took a bit of a heavy knockout there, but played through it. Just hoping, keeping the fingers crossed that he gets over the niggles. And I think a lot of it could be, funny enough, speaking of Max just now, but Max, when he first moved from playing regularly on grass to on 3G, picked up a lot of little niggles in his first season playing on the artificial surface. And I suspect that might have been a similar thing for Joe.
Hopefully his body's adjusted.
And hopefully he's adjusted to that. And we're really looking forward to seeing him at his best.
Yeah, same for sure. And then another centre mid who's become part of the furniture at the Tags, but also had injury issues that he started to put behind him last year. And hopefully this year could be a full season of football out of him, Mr. PK Humble.
Yeah.
Anything to say on him?
What is there to say about him? The only thing, and I think this is the conversation with PK, we know his career's taken off away from football, and we've seen how disruptive that can be for us, in the past with Toby, for example. And we had to have an honest and frank conversation with each other about whether this, could this work? Is this going to work? And we used the pre-season. We said, let's see how things go over pre-season. And to be fair, he's been strong to his word in terms of the level of commitment he's been able to give to us. He knows he needs to, not quite back where he was, but he's as close as I've seen him since he had those injuries. And his performance in our last friendly at Eastbourne was very much the PK of old. We're getting there with him, so
that's what we like to
hopefully hear. That continues.
Yeah, we all know what PK can do.
And the importance, people say to me all the time, he must be a nightmare to deal with, and to some extent he is, but in and around the changing room, absolutely not. And he's a really important character in that changing room.
Yeah. So another player that we brought in back end of last year, haven't really seen him at all during pre-season, so maybe you can shed some light on that, is Andronicus Georgiou.
Yeah, so Andron has had some issues, I think, around. He's had to have some treatment for some tendonitis, I think. And there was also a question about whether he would have opportunity to explore full-time football.
Obviously came out of, played EFL football for Stevenage.
Yeah, so, I think his ambition is to get back to that. So there was that could have been happening, and then obviously he's had to have this treatment that's meant he's not been able to explore those options, but also means he's not done a single session yet. Right. He's only just returned to any kind of rehab, so it is just a case of seeing where we go, seeing how he progresses with that. He's unlikely to be available for us in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
And then once he is up to fit to play, we've got to get him fit to play.
Yeah. So watch this space there for Georgiou. Next, we'll talk about Toby Aroma-Laron going into what I think will be his 6th season at the club. Certainly played in 3 different levels for us, which is the only person that can say that at our club right now.
Yep.
And the Archer is still arching for the Tags.
Yeah, Tobes. Again, really important to the group. We spoke about, Matty earlier, just getting the club. Toby is absolutely understands what it means to play for the club, cares about the club. We'll do, we'll play up front when asked, we'll play, wide when, we'll give his all. And yeah, just brilliant to keep him.
Another player that's a fan favourite, and we know, again, when Toby's in fine form, he's unplayable at times from the opposition standpoint. So hopefully we can get some more of that this year, because he's right up there, isn't he, on all the charts, goals, assists, appearances. He's got himself into the all-time 11 in the awards, but I don't think he's finished. I think he could end up being number 1 on everything, potentially, Toby. If he stays at the club and he keeps firing, he's right up there, statistically speaking. another person that statistics don't lie. He's had a really good year last year, a couple of good years with us in terms of goal scoring now, and going into his third season at the club is Misha Jamali.
Yep. Misha's one of those players who, spoke to back end of last season and, early on, and he wanted to explore what other opportunities there might be for him.
Yeah.
So it slightly disrupted his pre-season. And Misha driving me mad. And he knows this because he doesn't say it all the time. And I think he's one that maybe gets swayed by outside noise a little bit. Can't argue with his stats, can't argue with his goals, but he's got so much more to give. And he could be and he should be an absolute monster of a footballer. And we just need to get a bit more. My opinion is he's one of the best finishers in the league. I think that's something, he can. He's unbelievable left foot. He's got a really good right foot. He can head it. He can get all types of goals. And when he makes those runs and gets into the box, when it drops to him, he's the one person. As soon as it drops, it's in your mind straight away, it's a goal. It's just the other elements of his game. He allows things times to bite, the things you won't see in highlights. Things are bypassed. We've had lots of honest conversation with him, and if he does want to kick on to the next level, he's got to be more reliable in other areas of his game. But yeah, really pleased that he's staying, and I'm sure he'll continue to drive me mad because I honestly think when he gets it right, when he does the things that make him most effective, he is unplayable.
Yeah, when he's on song, he's just a physical specimen. Yeah. He's a big lad in there. Like you say, so good at arriving in the box, scoring those goals, and he's scored a lot for us already. And again, talking of stats and things, he 1 or 2 seasons away from potentially being an all-time goal scorer, top goal scorer for the Tags, because it's very achievable with the numbers he's been putting up. Another person who scored a lot of goals and is also a very good finisher, who also this summer did look at seeing if he could go to a higher league or going professional at least. Luke May-Parrott, he's back with us.
He's back with us. And again, another one. Luke, he's had his pre-season. He's disrupted his pre-season, and that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
They're the things you've got to roll with, and I think it's probably put him on the back foot a little bit. Saturday again, it's the first signs I'm seeing of him looking like his old self and knowing what he's capable of. We know Luke will score goals.
Yeah.
And it's just about again finding that he's still young, but finding that level of consistency where I think with Luke he tends to be right up there or down there, and if he can bring that up towards that. In terms of games when it's not quite going for him, what's he bringing to the game? How's he contributing? Stuff he's well aware of. He's an intelligent boy, Luke. He's not. He knows he's still learning and growing.
Still a young player. Obviously, won best young player last year, which shows you just how young he is because he's in his second season with us. Obviously, going into his third. We haven't talked about any other newcomings yet, with the exception of Jason Ring and Nathan Wilson, because all the other new signings have been in these attacking areas, which we're going to talk about now then. And I think one of the kind of more high-profile earlier signings you made was Evans Kwasi, who came in, who has been a problem for us when we've played against him many times, scored a lot of goals past us for multiple teams, Canvey, the Folkestones of the world. A very skillful winger. He's actually got an injury at the moment. That's why people would have seen him not feature.
So Evans broke his hand scoring... in the last minute in the Malden game.
Yeah.
So that's why you wouldn't necessarily have noticed him coming off the pitch. But he broke his hand being knocked off balance. He just landed awkwardly on it.
But before that was looking electric in pre-season.
Yeah, and I mean he's training non-contact at the moment. Is another one who's his finishing's fantastic. His level of skill. It's like Peter Pan. His athleticism and his energy and his enthusiasm kind of belies his age.
Yeah.
But he brings that experience of the level as well. So when I spoke about, the slightly early new signings and that kind of maturity that we were trying to sign, Evans fits the bill. And I think early signs are that, fans love him, and I think they're going to continue to love him. He's going to be a huge player for us.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a hashtag favourite in no time at all, and hopefully not too far away fitness-wise then.
Shouldn't be too far. No, I mean, to be honest, if he had his way, he'd be playing today.
Right, okay.
But
he probably won't?
we can't risk
Yeah.
losing him for 6 weeks because we rushed him back. So
But it gives an opportunity to some of the other lads.
The physios are holding him back.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it gives an opportunity to some of these other lads because you signed a few in those sort of attacking areas. We'll leave the out-and-out striker to the end. We announced some of these in the last week, actually. We announced 3 of them on the same day. They've all had successful kind of trial periods, and let's go through them. So Praise Ogbibor, I think he's the youngest of the new signings, had a decent season with Romford last year, and he's played abroad as well. Talk to me about him as a player, because I've watched a fair bit of him in pre-season. I've been quite impressed with him, certainly on the ball, skills, keeping the ball under pressure, really impressive.
The thing that's really, with Praise, that's his physical strength. It's really impressive. Knew of Praise from how young he was playing for Romford. I think he might be their youngest ever goal scorer. I think he was 16 when he got his first goal for Romford. He was part of a very successful FA Youth Cup team. And so always kept, an eye out for him. And then in the close season, so Romford's manager, obviously, people won't be aware, but he's one of our ex-players, Chris Newby.
Yep. And
spoke to Noobs in the close season, and he mentioned that Praise had been abroad but was coming back, and would I be prepared to look at him? And it was an absolute yes. I think the question then, what was obvious straight away with Praise, is that he's going to go and play a really good level of football. Higher than where we're at now is my belief. It was just a case of, is he quite ready yet? And I think he's shown enough in pre-season that he probably is. He's still got some, learning and developing to do. And one of the things really I spoke to Praise about was about coming to us. And I do think we're getting a bit of a reputation, particularly for wide players. We do play with width. We like to have exciting wingers, and we've had 3 in the last 3 years that have moved into full-time professional football. Yeah. So I think we're a good place for young wingers, especially attacking players, to show their capabilities. Yeah,
we mentioned this on Instagram when we signed him. He's got a few, as our next signing actually, he's been involved in a few different things online, and he's got some clips of him doing some skills and things, which doesn't always translate to 11-a-side, but in this case, it does. Him. Yeah.
Well,
in this case,
if I could have caught him,
I think he's going to get a lot of praise, just like his name this year, depending on how much game time he gets. What position do you see him in?
So he can play, and this is what I like in our wide players, where there's that kind of flexibility, in that he can play either side, left or right, but also I do see that there's potential for him to play as an attacking central.
And he's still young, right? Is he 19?
He's just turned 19. Yeah. Only just turned 19.
Yeah, so if he has a good season, could be one of those in the candidates for the best young player. And then Emmanuel Robe is a player, people may recognise the name, is involved in Baller League, was involved in the 26ers, I think, same team that Hassan played for last season. Also had a good pre-season, and he's been signed.
Yes, so Emmanuel was one when I became aware of his potential availability. I was keen to speak to. Kind of followed Emmanuel's career, from afar, from when he was a youngster at Averley and went out on dual registrations, and probably wasn't quite ready at that point, and has bounced around a little bit. He's experienced playing football abroad as well, so he's probably at a point where I think for him to really kick on, he needs to settle and get a good season under his belt somewhere, that maybe, but still young, powerful, quick.
Loves to wear his shorts high. Yeah. Loves to fold them up.
Hell of a strike on him as well.
Yeah.
Again, he's one that can play on the right, he can play on the left, or he can play as a centre forward. So again, we've got that, that adaptability that we like to see in, that we've already got in the likes of Luke. We have
Toby.
Yep. Jermaine Francis, when we had him, could play all those areas. Sack could play in all 3. I know we used him predominantly on the left, but he could play in those areas as well. So, I'd like to be able to have options within our options.
Yeah. And then another one we've got a lot of these guys, and I think when everyone's fit, if everyone's ever fit, you're going to have a real headache on your hands. And, I'm not saying this is a comparison. I'm not trying to make any undue early pressure on the player, but did come from the same agent as Jermaine Francis, is also an international player for a Caribbean island, which in this case is St. Lucia, Keegan Call, who's come in and, in your words, not mine, might be almost as quick as Josh Asude.
Well, I don't know about, he probably is as I said this to Josh last night. I said Josh is really quick, and not quite you quick, but he's quick.
He's at second best.
Yeah. And again, only young. Funny enough, came to watch us in our league-winning season when Jermaine was playing for us. He was telling me, so he's been over before, been playing abroad, say international for St. Lucia, and I think this shows the relationship, we have with some of our ex-players in the sense of has the person representing him as Jermaine.
Yeah.
And, Nick, who my experience of dealing with Nick is that he really cares about the players that he looks after as well. It's not just about, forcing moves and opportunities, about what's best for them, what's right for them. And in the past, for us, that wasn't, certainly in Jermaine's case, that meant us losing him. And no doubt at some point it will be the case with Keegan, or Kev, as the boys have nicknamed him.
Yeah. Oh, good, Kevin Keegan. I like it. I love it.
I was just saying, and Nick reached out to me and kind of said that he thinks we'll be the perfect place for him to start his kind of
journey
in England. And we had to wait for him to come over, and so he was a little bit late coming into pre-season, but it's made a pretty immediate impact with us, and we're looking forward to see what he can do. 21
years old, already an international, of course, as well. And we saw some clips of him, didn't we? And I think it's all linked to these things. This is why we've got to celebrate it when these players move on, like Jermaine, because it does create a pathway and a potential for future players to come in. And
in terms of the latest signings we've made, they're young. They're the kind of the opposite of the boys we've signed earlier in pre-season.
Yes.
to balance that up, because we do want to give young players the opportunity as well.
Of course. And then to finalise that squad, if you like, going into match day one, is another one of those early signings with a bit of experience. Bradley Satch, striker. Again, we've played against him for a couple of different teams, mostly Canvey, played for Chatham for a bit last year. Like a physical outlet.
Number 9, traditional number 9.
Old school number 9, mid-20s, so good age.
Yeah, a lot younger than... It surprises people who think he's a lot older than he is. But no, it's not just it's not just because of the paper around his head. That's because, I think, because of the level of experience he's got as well. He's been around for quite some time, and was part of the Canvey team that finished second in this league just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And, him and Evans in particular have got a really strong relationship on the pitch, and
both assisted each other.
Made it easier to sign the other.
Yeah, first pre-season you brought him off the bench, and not only did Kouassi score, but he set up Thatch for another one. So that's already been seen.
So good personality and character, and a real brought men.
Out and out striker. Yeah, exactly. Because we've got a lot of guys that can play up front and can play other positions, and obviously we've got Luke as well. But with Brad, it's that sort of exactly what you're going to get out of him. He's going to occupy a defender. He's just going to be a handful. So if we get good deliveries into him, things will happen. Okay, so that's your squad. Not going to see all of them right away, as you mentioned, a couple of them injured and whatnot, but we look forward to seeing, especially the new players. Let's just quickly talk about your lad, Ellis Devereux, obviously. Was it part of the praise deal that they gave us praise from Romford and you gave him your lad?
Maybe. It's probably how the conversation come about initially with praise, but Ellis has signed for Romford.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was registered with us last year on a dual reg. And I suppose in a similar way to Nate, Ellis needs to just go and play. Probably to get away from me as much as anything as well, and go and find it. Yeah, go and find his own way. And it's one where, as long as I think for as long as he's breathing, he'll always be our player.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's his.
You're still very young. Very young.
But he's had a decent season last year with White. It was his first season, and really it's just about going and trying to establish himself at that level before anything else.
And he's playing under, like you said earlier, an ex-hashtag player in Chris Newby as well, which is pretty cool. And something that's very cool, I've got a newspaper at home I need to give you. I've saved it because there's an article because, well, first of all, he got a hat-trick, I think, in a friendly recently. Then he scored properly in an official game. And that meant that you and him were a father-son goal-scoring duo for Romford. Dev scored a goal for Romford, won't say how many years ago. And now Ellis has scored multiple. So isn't that amazing?
Yeah, mine was on my debut. His was on his second game.
Oh, so you're better then.
He's already
and you're not a striker either.
No, he's already lasted longer than I did as well.
But I think that's pretty cool. And one day maybe we'll have a father-son goal-scoring duo for hashtag. Ellis did score the winner in that Premier League All-Stars game at the back end of last season for hashtag as well, which is pretty cool. And having you and him on the pitch, having
I
me
scored
and
in
Seb.
the 6-a-side.
All right, mate. It's not all about you.
And I think I scored against you in the 24-hour.
Doesn't sound realistic.
Sure
I don't think that happened. But yeah, I loved that. We had Devs, we had Ellis, we had me, we had Seb, we had Sam Adams, we had Ryan Adams, we had Joe Keefe and Albie Keefe. Like, honestly, and we won as well. What a game that was. But that's your squad. A couple changes to the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, coaching staff. So Benji, goalkeeper coach, has for personal reasons had to step aside. So
Okay.
we've changed that. We've had to bring in a new goalkeeper coach in Trevor. So Trevor's joins us and he's going to work with the goalkeepers, and we're delighted to have him.
Welcome, Trevor.
And we've also brought in Sammy Knott as a first team coach to strengthen our coaching department really, and add a bit of. Sammy's a young coach, good experience for a young coach. Was assistant manager at Canvey Island for the last 3 years, as part of the the management team that oversaw promotion for them, and someone we worked with when he was a young player, but injury curtailed his career.
Okay.
So he's come in, he's making a good impact already, and it's so you're not just looking to improve things on the pitch, it's also off and around the pitch as well. So
all that remains to be said, Devs, is we are literally right just as you're watching this, we might have even played the game already, about to start another season with you at the helm at hashtag. We're now on as a non-league entity and as you as a manager, because you have been our only manager in the men's team. We're 2 games away from hitting 300 games. So we'll do that in a couple of days because we play Lewis and we play Potter's Bar at home. What's your emotions going into another season? How does it feel different to the other ones? And how do you feel about this squad? Because obviously every year we learn something new. This is actually the first time we've ever had a 3rd season in a division.
Yeah.
So this is now officially the longest we've ever been in a league, which is the Isthmian Prem, which is, by the way, the league we always aimed to get to when we started this whole journey together, didn't we? So that's where we think we belong for now. And we're there and we're proving that we belong here with a 13th and an 8th place finish. And so we've continued to grow. So how do you feel about the squad going into this 3rd season in the Isthmian Prem?
I'm really looking forward to see how the squad, how we go. I think it's important we have a better start than we did last year. And what we've always done, aim's always been, can we be better than last year? Can we improve? I think the reality is we could be better than last year, this year, and finish lower in the league. It's so strong.
Yeah.
There's some really big clubs in the league and
big budgets.
This team's starting to go full time.
Yeah.
All those factors come into it, but we will continue to try and entertain in the sense of scoring goals.
Well, we certainly did that last year, didn't we?
Yeah, the last 3 seasons we've been right up there as highest goal scorers. So I'd like to think that we at least bring attacking football. Yes, we want to be better and more solid at the back, but we need to be realistic about how tough it is as well. And I know this for you because we went up. We're not that we're
not promotion favourites in this league. No, that's the thing, and it's hard for people watching that to get their head around that. Maybe because they look at our club and they think about size of our club and our social followers, and there's teams we're going up against, yes, that have got huge attendances in stadiums, but there's also teams that don't have that. But they just have loads of money.
And we're still building
loads of money.
And we're still building a club, aren't we?
Yeah. This is the thing.
We're still building. You're still so.
Well, we're by far the youngest club in the pyramid, not just in our league. Anyone above us. We are the youngest club this high in the country, and we probably don't talk about that enough. Like, it's hard to be this high and this young at the same time, and we're stable. We are clearly in the right division for us right now. And we got close to having a go at getting out of it last year.
And that's what we're going to try and do again.
And that's what we're going to try and do. But the reason why Devs will never have the pressure on him for me to win this division is because there are teams in this league, well, certainly not at the moment with the budget we have, spending so much more money than us. And I can't even explain how much more. I'm talking multiple 3 to 4 times what we spend potentially. Like, and there's not just one team maybe that's doing that. So, you know, ultimately in football, budget, transfer budget, playing budget is a huge indicator of where you're going to finish in the league table. There's always outliers, and we always look to over-deliver on that. And we have, even in the years when we've been successful and won the leagues, we've not ever really been the biggest spenders. So we've always been good at that. But for some reason, even with the economic climate being what it is, non-league just seems to get richer and richer every year. And it just seems, usually it's from clubs, you know, that have a benefactor that's happy to invest in that club. That's not what we are. What we are, and this is maybe where your job got a little bit harder this year as well, is obviously we'd done a fairly high profile raise, and we raised some money, which is fantastic. But as I mentioned in the material for that raise, and as Devs knows, and we try and convince people around us to believe us, that money has not gone into the budgets, okay? That money is there to do key things that are going to strengthen this club long term. And another promotion this year, even if we could still get one, but whether we get one or not is not going to determine the long-term success of this club right now. There are things we still need to do. One of the major ones being getting a home ground. Once we get a home ground and the things we can add on to this club, the business model, the revenues that we can increase, that's when the promotions will come, in my opinion. So Devs knows what our agenda is. I think you guys probably know, particularly those of you that invested, because I made it very clear in the raise what we're trying to achieve here. We're going to always be looking to win games of football. We're never going to be in a league, in my opinion, where we're not competitive and having the chance of being one of the good teams in that league, because that means we've got it wrong. We've set our budgets wrong. We've aimed in the wrong place. We're where we should be right now. But of course, we know what we can do. And we also know if we do what so far we've done every year in existence, which is improve on the year before, which is getting increasingly harder. One thing we do know though, Devs, is if we do it this year, we're either in the playoffs or we're very really close.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. Give us a comment in the comments below. Where do you think hashtag are going to finish this season? And of course, we have done a women's update. We did it a bit earlier in the off season because there was a lot going on there. It's on the extra channel. We'll put a link in the description, or maybe it'll be here for you to click on right now. I advise you to get up to speed with the women's team, because you're going to see a lot more of them this year. We're going to make a lot more content on the extra channel with the women's side, and covering the whole, you know, the whole spectrum of hashtag United, and they do a fantastic job, as does Devs and the men's team. So we want to celebrate that. But hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Devs, I wish you the best of luck against Lewis today. Let's go get it. Let's start off strong, and we'll see you on the next one. Up the tags.